Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What's her name?
Stella.
Stella,
That's so
Best
cute.
name ever. Are you kidding?
She's a little flirt.
Oh, like her mom, I bet.
Cool. Also, if you could maybe just sometimes...
Keep it down.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show on the 9th of May 2016. I'm Andrew.
And I'm the other guy. I did that last week and annoyed the heck out of you, so I'm stupid.
Now you annoyed me now because you actually give me your name this time. Yeah. We're here for, as usual, sort of the next roughly 90 minutes or so. Maybe not quite so much because we've only got a few films this week. But some of them are, well, kind of on the big side. Because what are we covering, Stuart?
Well, in the cinema section, we only have a couple of films, 2 films, because like Andy just said, there hasn't been a big release for movies, but we have comedy sequels starring Seth Rogen and Zac Efron in Bad Neighbours 2, that was the original Bad Neighbours, and then we're looking at a very strange drama with hints of comedy about the woman who supposedly has the worst voice ever, musical-wise, in Florence Foster Jenkins.
Yeah, before that though, of course, we'll be doing some movie news and a look at the UK cinema charts, but then after that we'll be going on to our DVD and Blu-ray section. Oh, there we go. Couldn't go without tripping up, could I? DVDs releases though this week.
Which include Quentin Tarantino's latest movie, dubbed, I think he's 9th, isn't it? 9th film.
8th, 9th. Yeah, well, it's questionable because of Kill Bill, obviously.
Yeah, even though he's definitely double figures now with the Hateful Eight, and then one of the biggest and best films of the year in the form of Room. And then we'll round things off with 2 small releases, a British/Irish horror film in the form of Xmoor, and the re-release, again, if you think Spider-Man gets remade a lot, then he has nothing on Ghost in the Shell, the new movie, or as it's known as, Kokaku Kidodai.
Yeah, you just had to show off, didn't you?
I watched it in Japanese, so I have to use the Japanese title, Kokaku Kidodai.
Yeah, of course, also we're going to have the DVD and Blu-ray charts before we go through the DVDs. If you are listening to us live, in the bottom right hand corner of your screen on Spreaker, you can click the chat icon and give us some feedback. Let us know your views on some of this week's films, on some of the films that are going to be coming up in the top 10 at the moment. You can go through them is it on the website actually? I don't think it is this week, is it? No,
I haven't put it on the website anymore.
So you can't go through them on the website. Well, you just have to wait and see what they are, because we'll go through them, as I said, in a minute.
It takes away the mystique from what the top 10 is if I put them on the website, because people then know from Wednesday and they go, you know what, let's fast forward through it.
Yeah, but we can get feedback, or we get comments from people, and we can go through them as well. So.
But if people wanted to actually return on the website, then just let us know, and then I'll ignore you.
Yeah. Well, the website, if anyone is interested, if they didn't know what it is mondaymovieshow.co.uk. So I'll just throw that in there before going on to this week's movie news. Start out with a piece of casting news. Seem to get, obviously, each week a bit of casting news breaking out. A couple of pieces this week in particular. One for Star Wars fans, so we are already filling one of our kind of regular quotas of movie pieces of the week to do with Star Wars, and it is that Alden Ehrenreich has been cast as Han Solo in the Star Wars spin-off.
They said that quite sarcastically.
Yeah. We should explain. The reason for that is because I did try and say the name earlier before the show started, and I completely butchered it in
it's one of those
typical style.
That we have to go on YouTube or something like that and watch an interview with them to see how it's actually properly pronounced.
Yeah.
Everybody, like for instance, Scarlett Johansson, people get her name wrong, or Lupita Nyong'o, people don't know how to pronounce her name.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if I was interviewing someone, I would actually say to them first, I say, can I just check, how do I pronounce your name so that I can do it right before the interview?
I think the worst one is Chiwetel Ejiofor. Because I still don't know if I'm actually pronouncing his surname right.
I think it is. I think that's right. But anyway, Alden Ehrenreich has been cast in the role of Han Solo, which had been rumoured for people like Ryan Gosling and such up until now. He is going to be starring in the role in the movie, which will be directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who directed the Lego Movie, among other things. And there's been nothing sort of detailing what's going to happen in the story, but there have been speculations online regarding that if he's been cast this early, then it may be so they can get him filming a cameo appearance in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, because bear in mind, that all happened before the original Star Wars in the timeline, the original A New Hope, which would have been just before sort of the time that Han Solo then starred in the film. So if they're going to do one around about then, it would kind of make sense.
Good casting as well, actually. In
it is.
Alden Ehrenreich. He's gonna actually crop up a little bit later on in a mention of a film on my TV movies of the week. But he has that young Han Solo kind of look to him, so it's good casting on that front.
It's funny thinking about him, because I was actually thinking about him today specifically to do with one of the new releases this week with Florence Foster Jenkins, because Florence Foster Jenkins is about a woman who is famous for being a really, really bad singer, and of course played by Meryl Streep, who is a really, really great vocally brilliant singer. She's really good, got a great voice for singing, and yet in the film she does do a good job of singing very badly. And it's just him also doing the job of an actor, but playing an actor who cannot act, a very, very bad actor. It's one of those. It's a hard thing to do, I think, and he can do that.
You that by saying he did that in Hail Caesar.
Yes, sorry, yes, in Hail Caesar, yes. Okay.
I always wonder, were you actually going to mention Hail Caesar?
I meant to, yes, but
was he in Florence Foster Jenkins?
No, he's not.
Yeah, I saw that film. I didn't see him in that.
No, I was just going to get there, but I forgot that. Yeah.
The thing is, though, it's not the fact that he's not infallible neither, because he has starred in a couple of absolute clunkers in the form of Twixt, which I really did not like that film. It's an awful movie, and it was also in Beautiful Creatures as well.
See, I didn't have a problem with that. I did have a problem with his accent in that. I didn't have a problem with the film, though. I'm one of those people who actually liked the film.
It's an awful
I was disappointed they didn't get to make further ones, because they did have plans for them.
But he did make his sort of like acting debut, as most American stars do, in one of the CSIs. So he was in an episode of CSI. It's sort of like in the UK, if you're in a soap opera, then you're gonna probably make it big. You'll have been in either The Bill or something like that, and then you will make it big.
Oh well, it's like I mean, going into that, George Clooney first started out in Street Hawk, the TV series about the bike. He was in an episode of that. He was in an episode of that in the early 90s, late 80s.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is early 80s.
Okay. So, I haven't seen Attack of the Killer Tomatoes though, so.
Yeah, and I think he was in the sequel as well, Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes.
Okay.
So,
well, moving on though. Other movie news. Yeah. Away from tomatoes. Well, I don't know if you want to be that or not, but Russell Crowe is in talks to join.
A big tomato.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. He's in talks apparently to join the Mummy remake with Tom Cruise. And the rumour is that the role that he's up for would be none other than Dr. Jekyll, and you would expect Mr. Hyde. Which would kind of solidify Universal going for a shared horror universe, and then potentially maybe into a spin-off even of his own film.
Yeah, and it's going to have a female mummy as well, played by Sophia Boutella, who she played the woman with the blades on her feet in Kingsman.
Well, it's a question of that as well. If she's playing it, are they going to have her be the typical one, or are they going to have be a mummy that doesn't have dialogue or anything, or are they just going to actually have her be a talking mummy as well? Because every mummy film has never really had a mummy that really talked.
Well, yeah, well, the Mummy, the one with Brendan Fraser in it, that's he talked.
Not really. No, he says a couple of words, and that's it.
In his own Egyptian tongue.
Yeah.
So he did actually speak there, but she was pretty much silent in Kingsman anywhere, and so they've gotten her so she can actually do a lot of the stunts and action scenes, because she was able to do that on in Kingsman, so obviously they looked at it and thought, yeah, we're not going to make her an Axonomon like the female character was in the Mummy one with Brendan Fraser, so let's just make her a female mummy who's going to kick bottom.
Unless it's going to be a continuation of that and they are bringing back the character as a mummy.
I don't think they'll do that.
No.
I think they'll probably steer away from that one after the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Yeah, that was...
So it probably is a good idea to steer away, because the way Universal are actually plotting these movies, they want to make it the more darker and slightly more serious. So when you get somebody like Tom Cruise in the film, you don't want to make it very jovial, do you?
No, that's true. Well, I mean, it depends on what kind of a tone they're going for.
If you want people to take it seriously, you don't want to make them jovial.
Tom Cruise has done comedy.
I know, but you don't mind sarcastic quips every now and again, but not as bad as they were in the Mummy films, because they went from slightly sarcastic to a little bit sarcastic to over-the-top sarcastic.
Yeah, and that one scene with the whole, I guarantee you it was a completely other woman in the film, which just honestly made me almost just turn it off. Yeah. Okay, my final piece of news is now if you're looking at a list of bingo, then you've got both numbers kind of this thing, because we are doing news for Star Wars this week and doing This Is News for Marvel. Yeah. Anthony and Joe Russo, the directors of the last two Captain America movies and upcoming Infinity War Parts 1 and 2, have spoken about the upcoming two-parter and have said that it is not going to be essentially a two-parter. It's going to be two separate movies, that instead of it being one story spread over the two, it's going to be two stories that are just connected, and because of that, at some point the two movies will be given separate titles. There's nothing sort of further than that at the moment, other than of course that the films have got their release dates set for 2018 and 2019, with a plan to film them back to back together and then release them obviously just a year apart.
Infinity War and Infinity Warfare.
It's
just to take cues from Infinite Warfare, the Call of Duty game that was announced like a week and a bit ago.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be. I think it'll be. They'll probably find, because the thing is, what they've done is things like Captain America: Civil War isn't a die-hard following of the story of the comic. It's been changed dramatically because of the fact that first of all they don't have all the characters they do from Marvel, because of some of them being X-Men characters and such, which are under control by Fox, and then there's elements in there that wouldn't work or wouldn't quite work, and they've changed some elements around. Basically they do what they do well though, is adapt elements of the stories and put them into there, and then add in maybe other things as well, and to make it more sort of a solid film. So I think we're going to see that probably happen, where the next two will be based on particular storylines, and then they'll put in parts of the whole Infinity War thing across the two of them. I think that's what's going to happen anyway. You know more about comic book movies than me. Yeah, although I've not read the Infinity War one. I didn't read Winters. I didn't read Civil War for a long time ago, so I honestly can't remember that much. But I know that it's very different from the film. But I'm glad with that, because I think it makes it kind of interesting. If you know it or not, it's still something happens that you can't always predict it.
Yeah, okay. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. Well, what's worse than going and watching a film, as much as you love it to be an adaptation of something you've seen, but then to watch it and you have no surprises, nothing comes, or you're watching something and go, ooh, didn't expect that,
Fine.
Okay, what news you got?
I'll move on.
Yeah.
James Norton, who's in a TV program called Happy Valleys, he has landed a role in the remake of Flatliners.
That's still going ahead?
Yep, Ellen Page is in it, and Diego Luna. It's going to be directed by Niels Arden Oplev, and if you're wondering who that is, he is the guy who directed the original Girl with Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah, I was trying to recognise the name. The original update. The original, not the Yeah. Yeah. I would. Yeah, another remake. I don't have a problem with the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo films. They are the first one. I still haven't seen the other two yet. But they are clearly kind of filmed for TV. Is the thing. They do have a kind of film for TV thing about them, which is nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing something like Flatliners, it's not really a remake of Flatliners as well. Don't do it like a TV thing. I'm curious to see what else he's directed, if he's done something that's more cinematic, because it seems a bit. I mean, hopefully he'll do a good job, but you never know. It could be if it's his first cinematic job, then all the best to him. But don't film it like a TV film.
You never know. It just all depends, like you said. You're not 100% certain what he's actually gone and done after The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
No.
I know. Well, he did do.
Did he do all three of them?
Definitely doing for Flatliners. He's done an episode of that Mr. Robot TV series. He also
that was a fantastically filmed TV series. A great series, actually.
He's also done an episode of Under the Dome as well.
Oh, that's not so good.
It just seems to be that the film that he's done is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He's done a couple of films between that. There's a movie called Dead Man Down, which he did.
Yeah. Okay. No,
that was the last film he did.
Yeah, you didn't like that, but I didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was not too bad.
It's been announced that another remake part, but it's sort of remake in a way. It's been announced that the remake of the cult film The Craft is not, in fact, a remake. In fact, it will be a sequel that'll be set 20 years after the original film.
Great, so this is going to be like The Craft to the next generation.
Yeah, pretty much.
What do you want to bet?
Bruce Abolika's probably going, you know what, you've got to make me appear in the film because I'm not doing any acting whatsoever now, so please give me a part.
She's going to play the old woman that turns up halfway through it that they go looking for and they find her and they're like, oh yeah, okay, bye.
But she lost her mind, didn't she, at the end of the film?
I honestly can't remember. I remember bits of it.
If I remember correctly, they took her powers out of her, and then she lost her mind and she was put inside of a mental institute. So it could be one of those ones where they do need to seek her help because something has gone really badly wrong, and she's the only one who can stop it or help them stop it.
Yeah, not hold my breath.
Yeah, neither am I, but. Sony Screen Gems have announced that the famous creepypasta. Do you know what creepypastas are?
Creepypasta, no.
Creepypastas are stories that are either based on true events or people have actually concocted up into their brilliant twisted brains, posted them on the internet about iconic things. So for example, in this case, the creepypasta is based on the Slender Man myth, so you must have heard of the Slender Man.
Right, yeah.
There is a film going to be made.
Yeah, so I mean it's not, we're not talking like, dinner foods that get soluble in hot water.
No.
Okay.
There is going to be a film. Sony Screen Gems have snapped up the rights to make a film based on the creepypasta of the Slender Man. People think that it was actually Slender Man was a meme. It was originally a creepypasta.
In fact, I think I just recently saw the trailer for it, so it can't be that far off. There is something about the Slender Man, isn't there?
There's been different things regarding the Slender Man. There's been short films based on the Slender Man and things like that. This is actually going to be the first full feature-length film based on the Slender Man myth, and it hasn't been shot yet. So it might be something different.
Okay, I'm gonna have a look and see if I can find out what.
TV, sort of like a series released on YouTube based on the Slender Man myth. I can't remember the name of it. I was pointed in the direction of it by Dalek, who used to help out on the show every now and again and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's based on the creepypasta, based on that. Even though there is two that I would like to actually say. I would like to see Smiley the dog. It'd be interesting to see how they would turn that into creepypasta. And there was one based on a guy called Robert who killed his parents and cut off his own lips and eyelids so he could smile.
What is it? Not the Bye Bye Man?
I don't know. I know there was if you look at episodes of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the ones with the guys who sucked out all like speech or something like that.
Hush in the Hush episode, yeah.
There was a creepypasta based on that. So creepypastas are normally stories that's based either on stories that originally existed or creations from other people. Well, Slender Man was one of those creations. Bigfoot supposedly there's an evolution of the Bigfoot story of a creepypasta. So there's multiple of them. Just seek them out. They're actually really interesting reads if you like horror stories.
Well, I'll tell you then to have a quick look on it. I won't go into it too much now, but a film called The Bye Bye Man, which apparently is coming out in December.
Okay, but this one's actually called Slender Man.
Okay.
So it will be a standard Slender Man movie. Guillermo del Toro has announced his new project titled The Shape of Water. The film centres around a young girl in 1963 who falls in love with an experiment in a lab and seeks to try and free him. That's all that's actually released of it.
Yeah, okay, so that sounds original.
The fact that the bloke is a merman. Does that make any better?
No, it actually makes it more Twilight-y.
No, and he's turned around and says he's going back to his really dark fantasy stuff. So he's going to make it very Pan's Labyrinth-esque. That make it more interesting.
We'll see.
Cinema Blend have confirmed that James Bobbin, the director of Muppets and Alice Through the Looking Glass, will direct the Jump Street and Men in Black spin-off MIB23.
I can't get excited about this. I really can't. It just doesn't. I mean, it might be good, but I just honestly, I just don't see this coming together in my head.
Well, I really liked what he did with the Muppets film. It was a
Muppets film, yeah, it was really good, but that's completely different than taking. It's like if you had the Muppets crossed over with something in that film, then it would have been weird, you know, and crossing over two very, very different weird things.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller sort of like proved that they can do adult comedy and children's comedy, and the fact that you look at How to Train Your Dragon, the Lego movie, yeah, they did 21-22 Jump Street. So they can manage both areas, and so that's not to say that Bobbins can't actually do that. With them going from something like the Muppets and Alice Through the Looking Glass to doing MIB23. And actually prove people wrong. And it's fun to actually see his surname, Bobbins. Shane Black has confirmed that his Predator film will start shooting this October. So it's just a little bit of an update on that.
I am looking forward to his next film, The Nice Guys.
But it took a while for him to actually start shooting this new Predator film. It felt like it was already began shooting or something like that. But no, October.
I think that maybe that Fox is taking their time with it because they don't want to rush it. Because that's kind of what they did with Predators, which I thought it was an okay film, but obviously it had rushed aspects to it, which felt not finished, sort of thing, incomplete.
Well, that's what Robert Rodriguez does with most of his films, anyway. So. And according to rumours, Jared Leto might be cast as the vampire Lestat in the new version of Interview with a Vampire.
That I can see happening. That I can see working.
Why? Because he looks emancipated in pretty much everything that he does.
Because he can play that kind of...
psychopath?
Oh, that kind of eccentricness. He has that quality.
Yeah, he picks and chooses his roles at least, but if you notice, pretty much every single role that he's chosen, he's either a psycho or somebody who's obsessed with drugs, or somebody who's even more psychotic who looks like he's obsessed with drugs. So it's interesting roles. Everything from Dallas Buyers Club to Requiem for a Dream, and in between Urban Legend. He was in the first Urban Legend film as well. So yeah, and that's it from me news-wise.
Okay, box office top 10.
Yeah, outside of the box office top 10, number 11 was the Ratchet and Clank film. So not very many people went to see it even.
Was it not actually technically number 12 though?
Number 11.
Because I've got a list here in front of me saying Event Cinema was at 28 days later at 11.
Yeah, some places actually pushed them out.
Okay.
So, there was a number 11. But number 10 is Eddie the Eagle.
Yeah, which I really enjoyed. It was a great feel-good film. That was witty and funny and really engaging, and the character was interesting enough because of the fact of that as much as it was a bit of a weird character, it was from a great performance by Taron Egerton, which kind of held it together, I think, and also from a small kind of good supporting role for Hugh Jackman that's quite funny as well.
Yeah, number 9 is Electra Met Opera.
Yeah, which is the Event Cinema thing. We don't cover those, but there's obviously a live thing that's been shown. I don't know if it was just shown live or if it was shown and a repeated thing. But these are doing quite popular. I mean, I've seen a couple of these things of live performances, and they're good to see on the screen if you can't really get to the real location. So it's good to see these kind of getting out there and doing well enough that they're getting in the top 10.
Yeah, there was an advert for the Andrew
Shakespeare
Maastricht one before I went to see Florence Foster Jenkins, which my guess is the cinema where I went to see it is sort of like understood the kind of audience that would go to see Florence
Yeah.
Foster Jenkins and go, you know what, let's tailor-made that advert and put that in there.
Yeah, I got one before Florence Foster Jenkins for I think it was not Hamlet, another Shakespeare one, but not the one you were doing. I think a different one. So there's a couple of them at least coming up.
Yeah. Number 8 is a new entry for Son of Saul.
This is the one I haven't seen. You saw this and covered it last week.
Yeah, open only on 55 sites and it managed to get into the top 10.
It's really impressive.
Really impressive.
Yeah.
So you're hoping that it does get extended into more screens for people to see, and if that's the case, it might actually stay around the top 10 for a few more weeks. It's a directorial debut from Laszlo Nemes, and it centres around Auschwitz in 1944, and it's just about a father inside of a concentration camp who discovers his son when the body of his son is brought into this camp. This camp is used to dispose of bodies because obviously they're going to just constantly pile up, and so they needed to dispose of them. And so when his son's brought in there, he ultimately just wants to bury his son in the proper Jewish way that his faith actually states. It is one of the most powerful films you will see, and pretty much you will actually literally see. It is that important. There are other movies of this ilk, but the way the film and the way the director and the way the cinematographer handles it, it sort of like concentrates all on Saul. It's all about his plight, about his son. It's a really difficult watch. I will guarantee that you'll come out of the cinema and it'll be one of those instances, if you go with somebody, that you will not be able to speak for a little while because you're trying to take in what you've actually experienced. So it's a really hard watch, but it's such an important film that it needs to be seen by everybody. It is one of those movies where I hope, to hope's sake, that it is taught in schools. It's shown in schools when they do teach about important things like Auschwitz and what happened during World War I and specifically in this case World War II. How bad and how brutal it was. It is such an important film that those kind of areas, it needs to be seen for that, but it needs to be seen by everybody. But don't expect a very easy film, because it is one of the hardest films I've actually had to sit through in a very long time.
I haven't seen it and I do want to see it, but I've not had a chance yet, so I'm going to, maybe not with next week's number of releases, but I will try and see to get a chance to see it as well, because I do want to see it.
You need to be actually making sure that you're in the right frame of mind. You can't have just, like, if you go for like a double bill, you can't have just gone and see a comedy and then go in to see something like this.
Yeah.
Or you can't go in to see this and then go in to see something like an action film or a comedy. Make sure it is the only film you watch that day, just to give you enough time to clear your mind and get ready for something that will hit you as a major gut punch, because it is such a difficult film to stomach.
Okay, I haven't seen that, but I also haven't seen the next one. I've seen everything else except these two films in the top 10.
Yeah, so number 7 is Friend's Request. It's 1/3 of a good film, a good idea involving the trial and tribulations of social networks, in this case Facebook, and the fact that somebody who can be popular ultimately can turn out to be something less popular when she supposedly does something that causes a girl to commit suicide. And that's interesting. That's an interesting element to follow. There are films out there which tackles that kind of situation. There's a movie called What Richard Did, which we'll mention the director a little bit later on in one of our DVD releases. And that's an interesting film, the way it actually focuses on somebody who's really popular, then supposedly does something really drastic and dramatic, and then things spiral out of control. But unfortunately, the way the directors have took this film is they've took it like Pulse or movies of that ilk where it involves the supernatural. It just doesn't fit with the film. So the first third is very good. After that, it just becomes a stereotypical bore-fest. Number 6 is a new entry for Demolition,
which is, it's a film that is not entirely successful in what it sets out to do, and it's a thing that it's hard to try and explain that very simply, but basically it's a film that sets out to try and show the grieving process and how it affects this one character played by Jake Gyllenhaal. And it does that, but it's in such a way that you don't engage with them because of the fact of it's a very kind of cold and unengaging and unemotional role, and that is the problem with the film, is that it has this thing about it being about emotion and lack of emotion, but because of that means that it's hard for the audience to actually connect with and get to, and at times very much is kind of a throwback to the audience and to the audience emotions, and as a result of that, it actually does at times border on almost kind of boredom. It's a shame as well, because it is a great performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. It's a great performance from Chris Cooper. It's not a bad film. It's just that I don't think it works as an idea.
And number 5 is a Bastille Day,
which is it is the kind of typical, the world in danger and one man can stop them sort of thing, but it's a bit sort of elevated above that by some nicely sort of constructed action sequences, by a good performance and presence from Idris Elba, and it's kind of like that step above the typical, could have had produced by Luc Besson stamped all the way across it, especially because it's set in France as well, even though I don't believe he had anything to do with it this time.
Good. And number 4 is Zootropolis.
Yeah, amazing this is still doing so well after being out for almost 2 months, and rightly so, because it is I think a fantastically animated film that it is, I think, an equal if not better than Inside Out last year. For Disney fun animation that's got a good story to it. It's great for kids and adults, and it actually has kind of some almost kind of life lesson things in there for kids that are important things, and covering important subjects about the sort of treatment of people and what's fair and unfair and things like that. I think it's an amazing, brilliant animation, and I look forward to seeing it again and again over the years.
Number 3 is Eye in the Sky,
which I really, really love, because of the fact of that it's hard to think of a film that is mostly just people literally in a room phoning in their performances, either on video phone or sitting there talking to people over the phone, and just basically sitting in a chair looking at a screen for 90 minutes to 2 hours, and without it being boring, because it's been directed with such a style, been edited with such a style, and with such care for it, that it actually builds and wraps tension up so well that you do white knuckle it. And it's for a drama with very, very little action, to manage to do that is exceptional craft work.
Number 2 is The Jungle Book,
which is an incredible film, given that it only has one live action aspect element for the whole film of the boy. Everything else is completely CG'd to a degree that at times some of the CG obviously is going to be not perfect all the way through, but it's that great and that well enough that your mind basically goes with it and accepts it when it is bad, and the whole thing is just incredibly well paced, well written. It's exciting, it's enthralling, it's scary at times for a PG film, which is maybe a bit of an issue. It should have maybe been a 12 rated film, but it's a film that really is impressively handled by Jon Favreau. I was not expecting it to be anywhere near this enticing and this good when I was going into it, and I came out just smiling.
And at number 1, I probably don't even need to actually mention the name of it, because you can guess what went in at number 1, but because we are reading out the top 10, it is Captain America Civil War.
Yeah, which I really, really loved. I'm hearing lots of good word about it. People have been going and raving about it mostly. Some people have had their issues with it, but I think it is the best movie that Marvel has made so far. Largely, I think, thanks to the directors, to Joe and Anthony Russo, because the last film they did, Winter Soldier, was for me the best film Marvel had done until now as well. And it's a really good thing that it's considering that there are so many characters crammed into it, that it manages to get pacing well, it manages to get the character elements, all the traits in there. You've got so many characters that all get their shot of screen time or elements in it. Some of them get slightly shortchanged, some of them only make sort of briefest appearances, but for the time that they are there, they are those characters. Their embodiment there is there, the traits are there, the humour, everything is there, and it works perfectly, as well as adding in Spider-Man is brought in for the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The character of the Black Panther is brought in there as well, and introduced and actually quite well engrossed into the story of the film. And I think it's a really, really brilliant, fun, and actually quite, at times, devastating Marvel film.
Yeah, it's it's snuck into my second best Marvel film. I will always still stick with for now anyway.
Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah.
It's just because Guardians of the Galaxy for me is I've seen it 3 times, which is a record for me with a Marvel film. That I've actually seen it 3 times. Well, a Marvel film in this day and age, based on the comic book characters. But every single time I've seen it, I've enjoyed it, and I've never weaned with it. I've never reduced my opinion of it. It's always stayed the same. This one I can sort of like see it might start to wane a little bit on us when I see it for a second time or whatever, because that was the case when I watched Avengers. Because I watched Avengers in the cinema, absolutely loved it. When I went to see it as a part of the double bill with the Age of Ultron, I actually felt, you know what, there are problems with this movie, and I was picking the problems out more when I viewed it multiple times. The same sort of like when it comes to Age of Ultron. I watched bits and bobs of it on television about a week and a half ago and thought, criminy, this looks really ropey. This looks really difficult to watch, and I couldn't watch any more. And I'm not saying that's going to be the same with Civil War, because there are a lot of interesting characters in the film itself. But I just don't see, for me, it will get past Guardians of the Galaxy. But I still really did enjoy it. And it made me want to go and see a Spider-Man movie. It makes me want to go out to definitely see a Spider-Man movie. And I want to see a Spider-Man movie more so than the next Avengers film, just because of how Tom Holland actually handles the character of Spider-Man. I thought he did brilliantly with the role.
Well, you'll get your movie then, because it's before the Spider-Man movie being done before the next Avengers film.
Directing it?
I'm not sure. I have to look that up.
So
I'm not sure if someone's actually been brought on for it yet or not, but if they have, then it'll be online, the details of it.
So it is Spider-Man Homecoming, isn't it? That is the next one.
And
John Watts,
I don't know. Okay.
I haven't a clue myself who John Watts
but
is.
Marvel does that. Marvel has a good thing of bringing in people.
I do know who he is.
Okay. Enlighten us.
He did that Kevin Bacon film Cop Car.
Okay.
And he also did that horror movie for Eli Roth called Clown.
Alright, I wasn't overly struck with Cop Car. It was okay, but I just wasn't into it, although I don't have a problem with him directing it, because Marvel has this thing of picking out talent that's done sort of small things and taking them into the realm of big, so...
I actually quite liked Clown. I thought it was a really creepy, over-the-top, gory kind of film, so... Okay, I'm even more interested in it now. The only downfall is it's got Robert Downey Jr. in it. He might be an Iron Man.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
There's too much of him.
Okay, moving on though, on to this week's new releases, and the first film going through is Bad Neighbours 2, which is directed by Nicholas Stoller. It is the sequel to Bad Neighbours, which in Bad Neighbours you had the whole situation of the characters played by Rose Byrne and Seth Rogen are married, have a kid, living in this house, and a fraternity moves in too next door. The fraternity members, sort of leading members, being played by Zac Efron, Dave Franco, and a few others, and proceed to create hell with parties and stuff going on. Now we have, some time has passed. The two of them are the Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne characters are still in the house. Everything's fine. The fraternity is now moved out of the house. It's being sorted out to be rented out by the owner. They are actually looking at selling the house, and they managed to sell the house. And you kind of need to know, because it's explained in the film simply, but the house goes into what's called escrow, where when the house is being sold, as part of the deal, there is 30 days in which at any point the buyers can turn up, have a look at the house, see what's going on, and if they find a problem, they can then, if it's something reasonable enough, they can then back out of the deal and not go ahead with the buying of the house. And so, of course, when some people start looking at the house, in particular a group of girls looking to set up a sorority, then of course this may mean bad things happening. Here's a clip.
You guys thinking about renting this place?
Maybe.
What do you guys want with such a big house?
We're starting our own sorority outside the system that can totally do whatever it wants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like throw dope-ass parties and totally rage.
A sorority that can party?
Kappa Nu.
What's wrong with fraternity parties?
Okay, what is it?
I mean, we threw great parties here. Pimps and hoes, CEOs and corporate hoes, Boise boys and Idahos.
They're like super sexist. Every party is like themed hoe.
I mean, oh, jeez. Oh, no. Oh, God. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see your point.
So, here's the thing with Bad Neighbours 2, because the first one, you didn't like it. I thought it was okay. It did get laughs at me.
I sort of like sniggered twice. There was one joke which I laughed at, and I sniggered. So I laughed and then sniggered.
Would that have been to do with airbags?
No, because I thought that joke was in the trailer 3 times in the original one. It's in the trailer for this one twice.
It's in the trailer for this one, but there is another trailer. There is another joke to do with airbags that's not in the trailer. That's actually in this film, which I actually did laugh and crack up a bit at. But basically, the thing is with this film is that the interesting things. I enjoyed the first one. I did laugh at it more than I expected to. And I thought it was perfectly fine, and the characters weren't particularly fleshed out. This time around, the surprising thing is that they have taken the character, especially one played by Zac Efron, and they've actually kind of improved on the character. And by that I mean the film starts off with him playing poker with his friends, including Dave Franco's character. And Dave Franco's character has moved on. He's working at a computer company doing programming, and he's now getting on with his life and everything. And you have them sitting around with the guy who played McLovin. I think his name makes an appearance as well because he was in the first one. And you have things like going on, like interesting things like that one of the characters in the time has now realised and come out as being gay. And changes to the characters and things that have been done, that the characters have actually grown up and gone on and to live their lives and do things. Zac Efron's character at the start of the film hasn't, and is still stuck in that rut of being basically a model who is now basically out-aging everyone else in the modelling gig. And through the movie, you heard in that clip there when he's like talking to the girls, he's telling the story and realising, oh, hang on a minute, no, this wasn't good. The fraternity party were quite terrible and things, and it's interesting because it means then his character actually becomes quite interesting to watch as he goes through that, and even more things go happening later on. I won't go into what, because that would kind of spoil things, but I found that kind of development and that character writing very, very well done. Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne are basically doing the same thing as they did in the last film. They start going through the whole thing of having to deal with the sorority. You have in the actual sorority the lead girls, the actual lead of them is played by Chloe Grace Moretz, who is perfectly fine in the role, does a few things that are questionable and funny. There's a great cameo with her from Kelsey Grammer makes an appearance at one point, which is actually really quite funny. He does a good job of getting a good laugh out there. Lisa Kudrow reappears in a small cameo as well, and it's also the fact of that what it does at points is it starts to point to the whole thing of racial equality, racial sexual equality, and the whole thing of the whole thing, because it starts off with the whole thing about the fact of that fraternities can throw parties and have parties, but sororities can't. Sororities are not allowed to. So that's why they decide they're going to start their own sorority outside of the sort of the norm things, and it's an interesting thing that there's that, and there's other things to do with the way that they start up their sorority as opposed to the way that all the fraternities are running things and stuff. So it's kind of going a bit above what the first one did, and it's not just going and doing the typical like the Hangover films with the second one, which did everything the first one did and just changed the setting and just did the whole thing again, repeated exactly. This actually does take some of the things and reuse them, and it reuses them in different ways, and it does some things new and changes things, and I did laugh all the way through it. I didn't laugh a lot through big moments of it, but it did get consistently throughout it. I laughed fair enough all the way through, and it was good. I had fun with it.
Well, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
I think you'd probably not enjoy it, but you'd think it was better, I think, than the first one. I'm
actually hearing that from even from people who saw the first one and didn't much like the first one. At least they put up with the second one. So I think it's sort of like a good sign on my front there. I might actually snigger twice and laugh once.
It's kind of like I say in The Hangover. It's almost as if you did The Hangover and then you did the second Hangover was them that instead of them going to Thailand and doing exactly the same thing all over again, if it was just them in America and something happened that came to them and they were having to then deal with the consequences of everything that happened in the first film. And, you know, instead of just going and doing the whole lot again, it's kind of like that. They actually thought, what would be the next thing to happen? What would actually work? Instead of just going, oh, we'll do it again, it'll be funny.
Yeah, at least they're actually trying to improve on it.
Yeah.
Tried to improve on it, unlike with them, like you said, with the Hangover series. They thought, you know what was funny in the first one? All these boob and fart jokes. Let's put more of that in there.
Exactly.
And then, at least by the sounds of it, they went, you know what was not that funny in that one? All these boob and fart jokes, let's reduce them slightly.
It's almost, in fact, actually, it's almost like they made the first one, and then it's like they went back 10 years later and made the second one, because it has that perspective as well on the first one.
Yeah. Okay, then on to the other release of the week in the cinemas. It's Florence Foster Jenkins, directed by Stephen Frears. Now, Stephen Frears is a big English director. He did films like The Queen and Philomena, which we really liked on the show. And Florence Foster Jenkins, she was born in the late 19th century, so to the back end of the 1800s. She sort of like had this delusional thing where she thought she had a really good singing voice. She was a head of a high society, a club where people put on plays and stuff like that, and pretty much the film opens up with her husband, who's played by Hugh Grant, who plays Sinclair Beerfield, and he's reciting Shakespeare, and then he turns around and makes this little sarcastic quip saying he never actually played the lead character in the role of it, in Hamlet in this case, and then but yeah, he was still reciting it. So it's sort of like they both match each other, though the way they actually play her out, with Florence thinking that she's got this really fantastic operatic voice after listening to somebody who's got this absolutely just beautiful voice and thinking that hers is the same, and her husband thinking that he's this outright brilliant actor when in fact he's got this delusional grandeur with it. However, what Florence does is she decides to try and take it to the next level, more so, and by getting a teacher to actually teach her how to do it, and also employing a piano player, played brilliantly by Simon Helberg in this one. You'll know him who played Wolowitz in The Big Bang Theory, to try and help her out to start to open up this show where she's going to sing in front of thousands of people who are actually out of war. So all these soldiers who are fighting for the country. She mentions it multiple times that she wants to give something back to them, and that's her giving it back to them. Here's a clip.
Stop there. There's work to be done. But you've never sounded better.
Yeah.
Maestro, it is true that a lot of singers my age are on the decline, but I seem to just get better and better.
I know, it's hard to believe, isn't it?
Well, I am so blessed.
There is no one quite like you.
The thing is, throughout the film, everybody around her seems to be yes people. Yes, you do sound absolutely fantastic. Yes, you didn't do anything wrong. Blah de blah de blah. Because by the looks of things, they don't want to harm her feelings. Whereas you, as a viewer, you're actually Simon Helberg's character, who plays Cosme McMoon. You actually see that she doesn't have a good voice at all. You're cringing, you're wincing every single time she's singing. Yet, you don't want to harm her feelings. Now, the way it looks at first, the way the other people are doing it, especially her husband, they're just doing it because they definitely don't want to do that. Yet, Cosme sort of like latches onto the character, and that's what you do as a viewer. You latch onto it, so you see past this bad voice, and you see the woman who's actually doing it. And so instead of you laughing along at what she's doing, laughing at her, you're pretty much laughing with her. But the film itself shows it from both sides. Shows it from the side where you do laugh at her, because that clip there, when it played out in the screening that I went to see, people were laughing at it. So intentionally they were laughing at her. Yet you could see the smile on her face, the joy that she was getting from it. And when she starts to twig on that people might start thinking that she's not as good as she might think, she in a way turns a little bit from that. And so she's sort of like laughing at herself, because she knows what she's doing is just bringing joy to people, and that's her ultimate thing. Overall, Meryl Streep's fantastic in the film. She's a fantastic singer anyway. She's proved that in movies that she's been in the past. And she has to take her fantastic singing and sort of like mess it around so badly that it sounds like a cat has invaded her body and actually singing for her. And she plays.
I was just gonna say, I actually thought at some point she sounded like a monkey doing ha 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 sort of things, and I genuinely was wondering if that was intentional or if it was just as an effect of just doing bad singing or just turning it into monkey sounds.
Well, it wasn't, because if you listen to the recordings at the end of the film or of the credits, that's exactly what Florence Foster Jenkins was like. So she brilliantly plays Florence Foster Jenkins. Hugh Grant has never been better. This is one of his best performances that he's done. He's really good in the role. But I think the one person who steals the show is Simon Helberg. He is absolutely fantastic in this. People would not have said that he would have been able to actually pull off a character like this, considering who he plays on a TV series. He plays Howard Wolowitz in The Big Bang Theory, a person who thinks that he's God's gift to women, when in fact he is just a geek. And in this one, he's somebody who fights with multiple different demons. It's not just down to the Florence character of how bad a singer she is. He wants to try and make it big with the penis that he is himself, trying to write music as well, but also come to terms with his sexuality throughout the film. And so it's a very complex character, and I think he handles it brilliantly. So out of everybody, he's the shining light out of it. And I know a lot of people are putting the plaudits on both Streep and Grant, and they do deserve it. But it's Helberg for me who steals the show, and it's a really good film. It's an uplifting sort of like very British kind of film movie, even though it was shot in Liverpool and it's set in America. But it's still a very British-centric movie because of the director involved, and definitely want to go and see. No matter how old you are, you'll still find something really interesting from the film. It does sag a little bit at times, but you can sort of forgive that.
I completely agree, and the reason I agree, and I think it was really well done, is the fact of that you have those kind of three main characters. You do also have Rebecca Ferguson in a small role as well, which ties in with the Hugh Grant character, because the Hugh Grant character it's like each of the three main characters have this thing where they start off in one way, and then as you get to kind of know them through the film, you start to then feel differently about them each as well. And you have Meryl Streep's character is obviously the main character, but she starts off and you're watching it, and it's very kind of, it starts off in a kind of like, oh my dear, word, this sort of thing, and then it's like, oh god, and you start feeling embarrassed for the character, and then you start to care about the character, and you start to think, well, you start to kind of cheer on the character as a result of that. And to do that to the audience in 2 hours is quite impressive, without it feeling fake and manipulative as well.
The perfect example of that, there is a character which crops up every now and again in the film itself. She sort of like looks like she's been there as a trophy wife.
Yeah.
She's a wife of this rich guy, and she can see Florence for what she is, that she's got a really horrible voice. But by the end of the film, she's the one who's actually telling people to cheer on her. Mm-hmm. She's the one who stands up for Florence and claps and says, "Come on, you've actually got to cheer for her." Yeah. So in a way, we're both Simon Helberg's character and her.
Yeah, and I mean the thing as well, like you're saying, Simon Helberg's character that is brilliantly performed by him, because he's got such nervousness and such uncertainty in him that he brings through very almost effortlessly from the start of the film, which might be just being around someone like Meryl Streep, because he probably finds her quite a bit intimidating, and it was the role of that when you can see a lot of the things like the scene where she's singing. It's not the actual singing that is that bad that you start thinking, oh, that's bad. You start that off, but then a lot of the laughter and the humour comes from people's expressions. You have her expression as she's singing and struggling to hit high notes. His expression as while he's playing a piano, as he kind of light bulb goes on and he realizes, oh my god, what's going on here, sort of thing. And Hugh Grant sitting there in a kind of like looking at him and going, yes, I know, but carry on with it anyway, sort of a thing. And that Hugh Grant's character as well is interesting because of the fact that he starts off with him being this character who you think, oh, he's very, very nice and committed and helping her and such, and then you feel almost as if he's kind of taking advantage of her, and then you realise he's not. He actually really does care. And it's an interesting, as I say, that those three characters, that they all start out as one thing to the audience and change into another, which is what's really cleverly done, because the film it's not even 2 hours long, and yet by the end of it you care about all three of these characters to a degree that you wouldn't with them in a typical film.
Did you nearly tear up?
I didn't, is the thing, but but it didn't feel like it was trying to. I think it wasn't manipulative, and I think that other films, other directors may have tried to force that into the end to make you kind of tear up and come out with it tearing up at the end, but it's not necessary.
It sort of does that. The way it closes the story, it sort of does that, and I didn't, but I did sort of think that's probably the way I would have ended it as well.
Yeah. But I thought it was very well written, very solidly directed, effortlessly performed. Because the thing is, it's hard to act badly if you're a good actor. I mean, like Meryl Streep is a fantastic actor, and yet in this film, and she's in particular a fantastic singer. As much as you didn't like Into the Woods, that was her singing in it, and you could hear it was her singing. And she's done singing in other things as well, and she has got a fantastic singing voice, and in this she has got a terrible singing voice. She is intentionally singing badly, which is the thing that's just, it's unbelievably hard to do something like that, and she does it, as I say, effortlessly.
Definitely worth a watch.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for this half of the show. We're going to have a quick break, after which we'll be back with this week's DVD and Blu-ray releases.
There was a real sense of you were doing something wrong, but that did give it that feeling of excitement.
When the reveal of the film happens, that's when it just becomes absurd.
And the atmosphere and just the sense you get whenever you go into it is undeniable.
It did absolutely zero for me, which could be for the hype.
What we've just discussed there is just scratching the surface on it.
Hi, I'm Eric England, the director of Contracted, and you're listening to From Page to Screen, the horror show.
And welcome back to this week's Monday Movie Show, into the home release section, where we don't have very many films to have a look at, but two of them are huge releases, including...
Yeah, the first two Oscar winning, I think, or at least Oscar nominated. You have Quentin Tarantino's Hateful Eight. I wasn't saying it 3 times, I was saying it to get it right. Cause
don't say it 3 times. Do not say it 3 times.
I'm in a spinny chair. I should really just spin around. If I do that, I'd probably yank the headphones out of my PC.
No, if you say it 3 times, he'll appear in front of you and then direct you in a really, really, really bad film.
Fortunately, I'm not in a room with a mirror, so I'm covered. I'm fine.
No, you don't even have to see it in the mirror. He is that creepy. He will climb out of your television and be like Sudaku from The Ring.
Sudaku? Yeah. Okay. Hateful Eight, though. We have a Oscar-winning film with Room. We have a horror film with Xmoor, which I have absolutely no idea about, so I just had to check with that. And we have a remake of the sorts, a remake of an animation film, Ghost in the Shell, the new movie, which is kind of timely given that they are now going to be doing the live-action one they started filming with Scarlett Johansson.
What's the Japanese title?
I Hate You.
Kokaku Kodotai.
Yeah, it's called. No, it's called. No, it will be forever known now known to me as I Hate Stuart.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's
I was going to be really annoying here and actually try and find the DVD on my shelf so I could grab it and see if it's got it on there. But
no, that's not actually the title of the. I think it's just might be for this one here, but. Yeah, it just means that I might actually start hunting out anime and manga to review on the show, just so I can do like this every single week.
Is this so you can fill your
My
For-
weird
for-
name quota.
No,
So I have
not your weird name quota. Your animation quota, since Studio Ghibli's no longer doing anymore.
I've still got when Marnie was there to comment. So,
Yeah.
they are. But Blu-ray and DVD top 10 then.
Starting at number 10 with Bridge of Spies.
Yeah, I think we're just going to rattle through pretty much all of these because we constantly get the same films every single week. So, Bridge of Spies, brilliantly directed by Steven Spielberg, brilliantly acted by Tom Hanks and Mark Rylance. Has a couple little problems for me in the film itself, but still worth a watch.
Spectre is at number 9.
Boring.
That's just your continual every week thing for Spectre, isn't it?
Yeah.
In fact, how many
boring.
It's not the same number of letters. I was going to say it could be like a code or something though. Number 8 is The Good Dinosaur.
For next week because you know it's going to be in the top 10 next week.
It might
Good
not
Dinosaur.
be.
Good Dinosaur, good animation, lackluster in story.
Okay, The Lady in the Van at number 7.
Good acting for some of the parts of the film. It's heartwarming at times, but you have to get through the first half an hour before you can reach the good stuff.
And number 6 is The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2.
It's an okay end to a series, but it does go out on a bit of a damn squib after you get through the 10 endings.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. The Hunger Games Lord of the Rings.
The Hobbit
Yeah.
mixed in with that as well.
Avengers Age of Ultron has jumped up the chart to number 5.
Yeah, good for it, but like I said, I watched parts of it for a second time the other week, and I just thought, what was Joss Whedon thinking? And even he has actually admitted to the fact that he wasn't thinking. So what he did create was a bit of a dumb squib. It is just a bit of a dumb squib. It's nowhere near as good as the original Avengers movie. It's a bit of a mess film, and if you look at the special effects and stuff like that in it now, it's outdated already.
I was wondering as well if there's maybe some kind of obviously with Captain America Civil War out, some kind of offer maybe for something, because at number 4 is Ant-Man.
Yeah, which I thought was fine. It was okay. It's down to the acting involved in the film itself rather than the film, because the film is very stereotypical Marvel, where it follows a flat bad guy. But in this case, it adds things a little bit by making the character slightly more sarcastic, but not as much as Iron Man, because it's not constant. Yet you do actually want to follow his story, and yeah, it's fine. It's above good for me.
New entry at number 3 for In the Heart of the Sea.
The problem with In the Heart of the Sea is that it has a good story in there somewhere, and it shows its hand at times when it does sort of like get away from the sea part of the movie, when it's just the person actually decanting the story involved with what happened with the wheel involved, which is Moby Dick, because it is based on a Moby Dick story. And that's interesting. It's just that all the sea stuff is just really badly implemented, especially again as talking with Avengers Age of Ultron. The mixture of CGI with the live action stuff just doesn't work at all, because it definitely looks like they're on sound stages getting buckets of water thrown at them, and the CGI stuff just looks really ropey and badly implemented. So there is a decent idea in there somewhere screaming to get out, and at times it peeks its head above the precipice, but it never ever manages to just reveal itself.
Also new entry at number 2 for Daddy's Home.
No surprise, I didn't like it. Even though I know you thought it was okay, it was fine. I just didn't like it. I didn't laugh at all, and it is one of those movies where it's a 12, but it uses the very stereotypical racist jokes, the homosexual jokes, but it uses them multiple times, and the revenge stuff against each other was just very childlike, and I just didn't find it funny.
I thought it was funny. It wasn't breakout amazing laugh, but it did consistently get enough laughs from me to count and get the sixth count laugh. So I was fine with it.
It didn't reach nowhere near 4.
Yeah. Okay, which means, of course, that number 1's movie hasn't changed. Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Yeah, it won't change for a little while, to be honest. It's going to remain
Well,
on top of the chart.
Maybe one of this week's films might, topple it.
You know what I would actually like to see? Where we get the Blu-ray and DVD top 10 is one of the only places which I actually think does it. But I would like to see what the breakdown of numbers are. How much something like Star Wars: The Force Awakens sells each week compared to, for example, Daddy's Home. How much did Daddy's Home sell? just to see what the difference in numbers is. But there are places it doesn't do that. They do that with the box office top 10 because I think it might be easier for them to be able to collate the numbers. But it would be nice to actually just see when we do read out the top 10s, we have weeks where we see a film in there for like 10 weeks in a row, 11 weeks in a row. And it'd just be interesting to see what numbers it's
if it goes up and down sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah. On to new releases of the week then. Quentin Tarantino props his head out again, directing the Hateful Eight. It is another one of his ensemble pieces where he gets a ton of actors who he's worked with in the past to go, you know what, you were in one of my other films, will you just be in this one? Come on, just be in this one for us, please. And so in this case he gets Samuel L. Jackson. Actually, the opener of the film is in a stagecoach where you see Kurt Russell's character who plays John Ruth. He has got a character in there played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. He is taking her to get home, who plays the character of Daisy Domergue. And along the way, they stop off and pick up a character played by Samuel L. Jackson, who plays Major Marcus Warren, and a character played by Walter Goggins, who is the sheriff, who plays Sheriff Chris Mannix. And they instantly do not get along. Here's a clip.
Ooh, woo! Well, I tell you what, Bob. The name's John. When we get to Red Rock, I'll buy you and Major Marquess there dinner and booze. My way of saying thanks. I don't drink with rebel renegades, and I damn sure don't break bread with them. Well, Mr. Ruth, you sound like you got an axe to grind against the cause. God, renegade army. Bunch of losers gone loco, you bet I do. Wrapped yourselves up in a rebel flag as an excuse to kill and steal. This ought to interest you, Warren, in particular emancipated blacks.
Sounds like my kind of fella.
Sound to me you've been reading a lot of newspapers, printed in Washington, D.C. Anywho, I'm just trying to let y'all know how grateful I am. I was a goner, and y'all saved me.
You want to show me how grateful you are? Shut up.
Now the thing is, though, a storm hits which forces them to take hold up in sort of like a stopover, a stopgap place where they discover multiple characters played by Demian Bichir, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Bruce Dern, and in this place, cabin fever takes hold, and suspicion starts to arise, and then it's just pretty much all for all against each other. The thing with the film itself, it takes a hell of a long time to get going. The stagecoach stuff, which involves the four characters inside that stagecoach, takes about a good 35-40 minutes, and then they get to the stopover, and that's pretty much where the rest of the film takes place, and that's when you discover the plot that's constantly running on throughout the film. I'm not going to give away any spoilers because it's silly to do that. You've got the very stereotypical Samuel L. Jackson character who plays the only black guy one, but yet he's ultimately just throwing out tons of racist slurs, and you get racism just thrown at you constantly. The N-word just seems to be top of Quentin Tarantino's lists of words to use throughout the film. And it is that kind of film where, like I said, it is set in a small little contained area, and cabin fever is going to latch onto the characters, but cabin fever pretty much latches onto you as well, because stuff does happen in the film, but it just plods along. It's on for good nearly 3 hours, and it plods along for that time when you're just thinking and saying to Quentin Tarantino, you know what, we know you're a good director, we know you like to do long films, but for once can you just do a movie that clocks in at 90 minutes, because your ideas only seem to be able to fit the 90-minute quota, and then after that you just want to add a few more character interactions which just don't need to be there. You need to add a plot twist which probably could have been done about half an hour, 45 minutes earlier, and made the movie flow along a little bit better. There's some good performances in the film itself, but overall it is just Quentin Tarantino nasal gazing, going, you know what, I was given this money, I'm going to make a long film with these characters and make it very Quentin Tarantino. I'm going to make it my kind of film. I think he makes movies just for him to watch. Just switch on and go, yeah, I made this. See, this is me. This is my movie. The actors, yeah, I'm the one who points to them and tell them, you do that. But this is my movie. and I think he gets his jollies on doing that kind of thing. I'm not saying it's a bad film, because it's not. There is a lot to appreciate in the film itself, but it's just way too long, way too navel gazing, and nothing we've never seen from Tarantino before. He's starting to become very lazy.
I agree somewhat with that, but I don't agree in that I think that should happen. I agree that I understand where you're coming from. I think that opening kind of half hour could be taken out and it would be fine. You could make do without it. I personally, I do like a long movie when it's well written, and I think it is very well. I think this is really well written. I do like a lot of the dialogue in it, and it's very dialogue heavy. People were seeing this and thinking it was going to be very... I mean, it is graphic at times, but they thought it was going to be a lot more graphic. They thought it was going to be a bit more actiony, not an action film, but have a lot more action to it than it has. It has very, very little and simple action. It, for me, I think is a very, very good attempt at being written as not a movie but as a stage play, and plays out like a stage play. I think if it was made to a stage play, I think it would actually be a lot better. I think it would work very, very well, because it's mostly set in this one sort of room, and this one kind of like a large cabin shack sort of thing. And I think it's really well handled in that regard. I do love the dialogue. I do love the characters in it for most of them. Some of them aren't particularly well fleshed out. They're just there as a kind of a stopgap. But I did find that I got a bit annoyed with the whole thing of what Quentin Tarantino likes to do, which is tell the story in a non-chronological order and break it up into chapters and show them out of sequence to basically have you see it, something happens, and then goes back to explain that. And I get why he does that, but there are other ways that he could have done that and it would have been better. You can do a quick flashback. You don't have to jump back and do a whole chapter that is set before what we've already seen. You can do it, and the thing is, that would also allow you to strip down the running time a bit. If you had a quick flashback of 30 seconds or a couple of things like that, or someone even just a flashback of 5 minutes before that, and it jumps back to where it is now, sort of thing, that would have allowed you to strip out probably a good 15-20 minutes of it that doesn't need to be there. I have no problem with it being there, because I like when there's pacing, and I like when it's got something to fill in those pacing, which is good acting, good directing, and good dialogue. I also love the way it's shot. I do love the cinematography of it, given that it's all filmed inside a room mostly. The use of wide angles, which is not something seen in films now. It's seen a lot in older films, and I do love kind of that cinematography of that, because it manages to make the space more interesting, given that it could be a simple room, and I'll get into that in a moment as well on the next film. But it's basically the way that you can make a space that is limited looks so much more than it is, because of the way you film it, the way you shoot it, and the cameras that you use, and that makes it, for me, a lot more also visually interesting a film as well.
I still wish he would just branch out and just try his hand at something different. I want him to go back to like From Dusk Till Dawn kind of days.
I'd like to see him handle a full-on sci-fi film. I genuinely would love to see him handle something, in space or something. Proper, not like 70s space, but proper space movie.
Maybe.
I just, Shall I go on to Room then?
You should go on to Room.
Yep. Because, as I said about filming in small rooms, the thing is we have Room, which is directed by Lenny Abramson. It is written by and based on the novel by Emma Donoghue, so she has written the script herself based on her own novel, and it centres around, you have kind of the main character of the film is Jack, a 6-year-old boy. I forget the age now, but I think it's about 8-year-old boy, who is played by Jacob Tremblay, and he basically has just grown up all his life in this 11 by 11 foot room. He lives there with his mother, just called Ma in the film, played by Bree Larson. She has brought him up and raised him there because she is trapped in this room. There is a truth that she has kept hidden from him in order for him to have a somewhat happy life as best he can. They've lived in this room all of his life, and for several years since she was kidnapped and held in the room by a man only known to them as Old Nick, played by Sean Bridges. She then starts to realise at one point when Nick comes back one night and says, there's been a problem, I lost my job, and then for the next whole day the heating goes out in the room, and she starts to fear for their safety, and in particular fear for Jack's life, and so starts putting a plan together in order to help and try and sneak him out of room into the outside world. The problem being that because she has protected him all his life, that Jack has no kind of understanding or comprehension of what exists outside of room. Here's a clip.
Do you remember how Alice wasn't always in Wonderland?
She fell down, down, down deep in a hole.
Right, well, I wasn't always in room. I'm like Alice. I was a little girl named Joy.
Nah.
And I lived in a house with my mom and my dad. You would call them Grandma and Grandpa.
What house?
A house. It was in the world. And there was a backyard, and we had a hammock. And we would swing in the hammock, and we would eat ice cream.
A TV house?
No, Jack, a real house, not TV. Are you even listening to me? When I was a little older, when I was 17, I was walking home from school.
Where was I?
You were still up in heaven. But there was a guy, he pretended that his dog was sick.
What guy?
Old Nick. We call him Old Nick. I don't know what his real name is. But he pretended his dog was sick.
What's the dog's name?
Jack, there wasn't a dog. He was trying to trick me. Okay? There wasn't a dog. Old Nick stole me.
I want a different story.
No, this is the story that you get. He put me in his garden shed. Here. Room is the shed.
So, the thing is that with Room, you have a film which it starts off being in this room, and the thing I was saying about with Hateful Eight is the way that the film was shot in this opening sequence, because it spends a lot longer than it could have done in the whole sequence in the room, which is interesting because that obviously then sets up the character of Jack and of Ma, and you have this interesting sequence of the way that Jack wakes up. He goes around inside the room, even though it's a small room, and he, like says morning to this and morning to that, and all these things that are in his room, and they film it in such a way that it's shot again very much like a wideness and different angles and things like that make it interesting, and it shows how Jack grows up in that circumstance, not being sort of protective but not being aware of the circumstance of his birth, for example, and that sort of thing, and that him being a happy child and being protected and so much more better off than he really should be because of the circumstances, because you can understand that because of the way that the room is set up and done and filmed, and then it does break out into the world, and the thing that really then becomes interesting is the fact that you have the characters of Ma and Jack. Their relationship goes through the strain of that happening. Jacob Tremblay is absolutely incredible, especially given that this is basically his first production he's been in, because he has that whole thing of being a child, being able to show a sense of at the same time wonder and fear and uncertainty and nervousness about everything, and even in that clip there you heard the frustration at not being able to understand entirely what his mother is telling him, because he needs to know that for potentially fear of his life. And it's got this sort of real kind of surprising emotional aspect where you have the whole thing about the connection between mother and son, which is something that you wouldn't really think of so much in this, because you'd think of all the bad aspects of it, the negative aspects of it, the character having been, and we see it, but we see it from Jack's point of view, because the film is mostly all shot from Jack's point of view and done from that when Old Nick comes back one night and is in bed with Ma, but Jack's bed is in a closet, a cupboard, so he's in there and the door's closed and he can't see anything and that sort of thing. So it's all Ma does everything she can to protect him from the horribleness of the situation and the the darkness of the subject, and the film does a good job of that as well. It's not that the film shies away from it, but the film is showing you this 8-year-old boy's view of everything, this 8-year-old boy's understanding of everything, that makes it so that it's a film that, instead of going that was bad, that was bad, that was bad, it goes, this is interesting, this is good, this is amazing, and there's that which is bad, and it puts it in perspective that there's the badness there, but you don't need to dwell on that. You can look at the good things. You can go, outside of the room. There's this wonderful thing, and you're out of that situation, even though you didn't know it. And now you can go on, and it's kind of an upbeat, uplifting film because of that. It doesn't dwell as it could, and as so many other films have. I wrote a quick review of this recently, and in that I mentioned about The Lovely Bones, which is a film that does that. It's very much a film that focuses on the negativeness of the subject and the negativeness of the things that happen, as slightly different as they are. It's a similar kind of element, and that is completely the opposite way it focuses on than this goes in, towards the light sort of thing. That goes towards the darkness, and it's a film that is uplifting, it is emotional, and by the end of it you'll be fighting back tears.
Yeah, it's a phenomenally made movie. As I mentioned earlier on, Lenny Abramson, he's a fantastic director. He did do the movie What Richard Did, and he has proven to be somebody who can sort of like grasp an idea, and instead of sort of like messing around with that simplistic idea that he grasps hold of, he actually fully fleshes it out and makes it a more interesting film. When I was actually putting together What Richard Did alongside Friend's Request, so that Friend's Request had a third of an idea, and it did. And just imagine if somebody like Lenny Abramson actually directed that movie, it would have made it a much more interesting film. As Andrew said, this movie could have been a very depressing kind of film, but he never does that. Where he always seems to shine a little bit of a light on something. It's sort of like when you're inside the room, that's the only light the little boy has had, yet he can't understand, he can't get the grasp what the outside world is actually like. And so as soon as when he's on the back of the truck and he pulls back the sheet for the first time and he sees what the world's like, he's sort of like aghast. It's like him being born for the first time again, him seeing a whole new different environment, and it's just pretty much you following. Then it's like, it feels like a different film because you're following feel like a different character, but in fact it's just the way Abramson manages to tie everything together. He ties it together brilliantly. Some fantastic performances throughout the film, and it is a movie that will stick with you. It's not a movie that you will instantly forget. You will actually remember this film a year, 5 years, 10 years down the line. You'll go to people, did you see that film released in 2015/2016 called Room? Then you'll have a conversation about it and sit down and watch it again. It is going to be an important film for years to come because it is such one of those phenomenal sort of like standout movies for it to do that.
Yeah, and it was the film that Brie Larson won Best Actress for it as well.
And she definitely deserved that.
Yeah.
Right, 2 films to round out tonight's show. I'll actually start off with Ghost in the Shell, or Kokaku Kidori.
Stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah, because I'm going to end off on the bargain basement movie of the week. But yeah, this one is if you know what the Ghost in the Shell story is, it's slightly convoluted and complex. But it basically boils down to, it's set in the near future, not too far into the near future, but it's set into the near future when World War IV has happened. Bombs have gone off, nuclear bombs have gone off, killing major like arms dealers and all that kind of stuff. And an organisation is set up of the character Motoko Kusanagi, who's voiced in the Japanese version, which is the one I watched by Maya Sakamoto, and the English version is Elizabeth Maxwell is the one who does the voice. Now Maya Sakamoto has done the voice of Motoko throughout the entirety of the Ghost in the Shell series, so from when the original film came out up until now. And it just centres around an organisation that's set up to try and discover what's actually happened, especially considering that her president has been assassinated, and then to discover who's doing it. And when she digs further down into it, something from her childhood, considering that she is known as a ghost in the shell, pretty much in a way, bodies that have human traits, but they're empty vessels that are inhabited by these ghosts kind of things. They range from everything from automatons to humans that are being invaded by these ghosts. And now Motoko, as somebody who's never known what a human life is actually like, she was born supposedly as a ghost, and that's pretty much it. But she discovers something from her childhood which might tie around to the assassination of the president of Japan. Now, like I said, if you've seen the original Ghost in the Shell movie, you'll understand what this film is like. It's sort of like a retread of the original movie. It's not exactly a remake of it, but it's more of a retread of it, and it's a very interesting film. It's more of a political kind of movie with a few action set pieces into it. But that's the way the Ghost in the Shell series has always been about. Even if you go into Ghost in the Shell standalone complexes, or as I know it, Gitsak. I've always known it as Gitsak, but if you go into that kind of stuff, that explores more of the kind of stuff which involves the ghosts and the inhabitant of the bodies and what it's like on the bodies themselves. Whereas the standard Ghost in the Shell series follows more of a political element to it, throwing in the steampunk kind of over the top science fiction Japanese ideologies. And so it is an interesting film from a political standpoint of view, but you'll still get the action set pieces in that you know from the Ghost in the Shell series. So it's one for the fans. It's one for the fans pretty much only, because anybody else who tries to watch the movie will sort of like not grasp what's going on.
I have a question regarding that, because I do love the original Ghost in the Shell film. It is one of my favourite animation films, and it is beautiful to look at, but it has one of those films that if you're not used to that Japanese type of storytelling and the way that some of the stories sort of develop into Japanese kind of mythology, there's that part of it which the Western audiences, unless they're sort of into anime and manga, will find that kind of hard to grasp, and wasn't sort of a big selling point with them. It was a film, it was a part that kind of lost them in the film. You're saying this has got more to do with the history of the character and sort of a thing to do with an assassination. Does it feel still much like it's Ghost in the Shell as it was, or does it feel, because it sounds as if it's maybe been kind of westernized a little bit?
No, it's never westernized, but because of the way film has evolved since when the original Ghost in the Shell was actually released, we are getting a live action version with Scarlett Johansson at the end of next year. But the way we've actually started to see sci-fi, there's always been hints of a remake of Metropolis, but if you look at them, not counting the Japanese version of Metropolis, if you look back to the 1920s to Fritz Lang's Metropolis, science fiction has evolved. And since the last Ghost in the Shell film, the original Ghost in the Shell film was released, science fiction has evolved even more so, where we have getting movies like Lucy. Now, Lucy has got a very Japanese ideology with it. It's very Japanese-centric, but it's directed by a French director. And so it's got that futuristic feel to it, and so people would actually understand it more so now than what they tried to when they watched the original Ghost in the Shell, but it still never deviates from its Japanese science fiction roots, because Japan loves that kind of thing. It's the most futuristic country in the world, and it's understandable from that point of view, and that's how they understand it. But I think people will understand this one more so than the original one back then, because it was sort of like society was still a bit more closed off back then. But because society has become much more expansive, and we are starting to see all of these scientific just the way everything actually goes now, everything from mobile phones and things like that, when we watch tech shows, when we see more, for example today, the world's first bendy mobile phone was shown off. Now that's sort of like very futuristic thinking, and we can sort of like understand those kind of viewpoints now.
Okay, interesting. I'm kind of curious, but I kind of have this whole thing of that I love the original one so much, I'm on the fence about it, whether to see it or not, if I really want to see it.
It is one of those ones, if you understand the original, then you'll get it. You'll because it pretty much uses the same characters from the original one, so you go, oh, that's from the original one, and you'll start thinking back to the original one, but it does enough to actually distinguish itself from the original one. The final film of the week is Xmoor, small little British/Irish movie, directed by Luke Hyams and written by him. It centres around a documentary crew of two, husband and wife. They both come from America to document supposedly a sighting of a beast on Xmoor. Sort of like I wouldn't say it's a werewolf, more like a hyena-esque kind of beast. When they get there, they get help from a friend, but discover that a beast might not be the thing that's actually responsible for deaths in the area of Xmoor. It could be a serial killer. So they go out exploring into the woods where they discover more than they actually bargained for. Now, the film is god-awful. It's absolutely horrendous. Because 80% of the movie is set in the dark. And it's in the dark where you can't see much. So you're squinting at the screen wondering what the heck is going on. You hear screams and going, yeah, you're screaming, but I can't even see what you're screaming at. You could be looking at a picture of yourself and you'll still be screaming at it. You don't understand what's going on. And then the poster is deceivious by saying it's all about a beast. And then the film itself is more about a serial killer, about this guy who supposedly collects bodies and dumps them in the middle of a forest. And so you question, what was the director/writer thinking? Did he initially think, oh, let's make a movie about a beast, but you know what, let's create a movie now about a serial killer? And he already sort of like mocked up the poster and they forgot to change it. Or he just wanted to do the poster just to sort of like divert people away from it and go, yeah, I've got a twist for you, it's a serial killer. It's not very much of a twist. They throw in a drug addict person who's just obsessed with taking drugs, and she's supposedly there to get clean, when in fact you just want to see her get an axe to the head because you just want her to shut up because she's a moaning, whining person. And that's pretty much everybody involved in the film. There's horrible acting involved. The camera just hasn't a clue what the heck he wants to do. When the serial killer does show up, he's like a really screaming little child. He throws dummies and all of his toys out of the pram. When he sees the camera setup that they have, he just starts breaking it. Instead of going after them, you can see on one of the screens they're running off in the opposite direction, and he's still inside the tent just smashing away at the screens. Go out of the tent, get your axe, throw it at them and kill them, for God's sakes. That doesn't happen. And then the director has the gall of going, you know that poster that I created? Wink wink. Guess what? Wink wink. The last shot of the film is stupidly preposterous. It's really arrogantly created, the last shot of the film. It's just the director going, ha, I tricked you, wink wink. No, you're an idiot. You're a complete and utter idiot. The 90 minutes that you created beforehand, I really do want back. I want to go back in time so I don't have to watch this absolute garbage fest again. Avoid it. If you see Xmoor on the shop shelves, just go, yeah,
go see X-Men instead. Go see X-Men instead of Xmoor.
No, just avoid X's. If you see the X section and the DVD section well,
yeah, don't go there. Don't go there.
If you see the letter X involved in any section in a DVD player, just avoid it. Just absolutely avoid it. Xmoor is one of the worst films I've seen this year. Horrible. It's really horrible. Right, TV movie of the week.
I've only got a couple this week, which I've got basically my main choice, but my other one I'm pointing out is Sunday the 14th of May on Film 4 at 11:20 PM is Stoker, which is the Mia Wasikowska one. It's a very weird, dark film. It is an 18. That's why it's on so late, and it's very graphically violent.
I have it down to Saturday at 20.
Saturday? Did I not say Saturday?
You said Sunday.
Sunday. Sorry, Saturday. It is 14th of May. But it's a very, very dark film. But it's a really, really beautifully shot and beautifully impressive, and essentially kind of a beautifully choreographed film, because every shot is in place, and you know the way it's planned is.
Matthew Goddard, and he's creepily bad.
He is. Yes.
Nicole Kidman's actually surprisingly really good in the
film. Yeah,
as well.
Very understated role as well.
They're directed by Park Chan-wook.
Yeah.
First English language film.
But my choice for a TV movie of the week is on the Sunday the 15th of May. BBC 2 at 11:30 PM at night. Rescue Dawn.
Oh, yeah, I'm surprised you didn't go with Margin Call.
I didn't see Margin Call. I've seen Rescue Dawn listed.
Margin Call's on Saturday night on BBC 2.
Okay, I did not see that. I would have said that then. Yeah, I didn't know that was on. I've missed it. But
yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Then my TV movie of the week is Margin Call. Then, yeah.
I think it's like 10 or something like that on BBC Two. Because
Okay.
that's the reason why I wrote Stalker down, because I knew you would go for Margin Call.
I honestly didn't see it. I was looking through all the schedules and seeing what was on, and I thought there's not a lot on this week, and then I was seeing there was Stoker and Rescue Dawn. And I thought, okay, I've got a couple of things, and I've completely missed that, which is annoying because I do love Margin Call. So yeah, Margin Call.
But I'll let you have the other one as well.
Stuart, what's your TV movie of the week?
Well, Stalker was in my list, but I've got another 3 to add to that list. On Film 4, on Saturday the 14th at 2:20 a.m, so that's Friday night, is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Tobe Hooper one. People have a misdemeanor with that film. They think it's an absolute gore fest, when in fact it's very little gore in it. But it's still really well created, very tense movie. So there's that one. And then I've gone for 2 sort of like family friendly movies. They clash slightly with each other, so you need to choose which one you want to watch. Well, my TV movie of the week, by the way, is Stalker. But yeah, 2 films which I definitely implore people to watch. The first one is on ITV on Sunday the 15th of May at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Uncle Buck. It's been a while since I've seen Uncle Buck, and I really, really like Uncle Buck. It's a very funny film.
It's got great scenes still this day with the whole 20 questions thing with Macaulay, a very, very young Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, it's sort of like in the era when he did Home Alone, and
Yeah.
he did do that one with Elijah Wood in it as well, didn't he? I forgot the name of it now. He played a cousin of Elijah Wood's character. In
Oh, is that the Good Son?
Yeah, the Good Son.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did that. That one was a weird step away from sort of like Home Alone.
Yeah.
And Uncle Buck territory. But yeah, Uncle Buck, ITV on Sunday the 15th of May at 4 o'clock. And then on Channel 5 on Sunday the 15th of May at 5:15. So it's probably near to the end of Uncle Buck. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. So I mentioned the original Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs last week. Well, the sequel is being shown on their Channel 5. I loved that film. It's a vibrant, funny, colourful, over-the-top movie, but it's still a really good film to watch. But overall, my TV movie of the week is Stalker. But still, Uncle Buck and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, there's a good family double bill on a Sunday, considering there's very little to do around about that time on a Sunday anyway. So, something enjoyable to watch there. And that's it for this week's show. Make sure you check out the website, mondaymovieshow.co.uk. You can find out when the next show is going to air on the website itself. Facebook.com/Monday Movie Show, Twitter @Monday Movie Show. I'm on there @Cryptic Tadpole, Andrew's on there @HDVD. You can email us at mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com. Followingthenerd.com is where you'll find the show also pops up. You'll find it on iTunes and any of the Android apps as well. Leave us some feedback on each one of those, and on YouTube as well. Just search for Monday Movie Show on there and just leave us some feedback on that as well. You heard Stuart in the advert break there from page 2 screen, the number 2. Search him on Twitter. And also make sure you check out the video game show that I do, Following the Gamer, aired on Saturday night. Al the Ball Gamer Dude kindly guested on the show, and he's going to actually appear again on the next show, which is a week on Saturday, once a fortnight. Really enjoyable, entertaining show. You should give that a listen if you're into video games. 90 minutes of just video game talk, but yeah, it was just enjoyable to do. It felt different. It felt like we actually found our roots for the first time with the show. So yeah, make sure you check all that stuff out. We'll be back next week with, from what we can tell, a very jam-packed cinema section of the show. There is a lot released on Friday. I think they're trying to actually throw as much as they possibly can out because they don't want to go up against X-Men.
It's the gap between Captain America and X-Men, because it's been, that'll be 2 weeks after that, but 2 weeks before, or a week before X-Men.
Yeah.
So
we've got X-Men in a couple of weeks' time, and so studios are going, you know what, we're going to throw all of our films out that week because we know we're not going to be able to challenge X-Men at all. So we'll play you out with a clip for a film that we will review on next week's show, which is
Our Kind of
You want to start again?
It's complicated.
No, I thought the film was called Our Kind of Traitor, not
Yeah.
Complicated.
No, I'm making a Hail Caesar joke.
No, Okay, then good for you. I have not seen Hail Caesar, so I don't get the joke.
Well, okay.
But it's worth so simple.
Exactly. Yes. No, it's the punchline to that.
I still need to see that film. I'll be reviewing it soon when it comes out on Blu-ray and DVD, but I really want to watch that anyway. But yeah, we'll play you out a little clip with Our Kind of Traitor, which we'll review on next week's show. And so until next week, goodbye.
Bye.
I said I didn't want my wife involved.
I'm sorry, would you like to wait outside?
Involved in what?
I brought something over for Dima.
What?
I don't know.
How would you like to sit down? I have some questions. Not tough. Medium soft. Is this all he gave you?
Yeah.
Didn't offer you any money?
Oh, he did, but I refused.
Then why did you bring it?
I thought it was the right thing to do. He said that his children would be killed if I didn't.
You believed him?
He seemed scared.
He told you he was a member of the Russian mafia. And you still agreed to help him. You haven't checked the contents of the memory stick?
No, I thought I could just hand it over and be done with it. I thought that would be it, you know?